Welcome to Riverstone Reviews, and today we're going to look at Zack Snyder's Justice League. Is it a better film, and did he deserve to be fired from the original production? Let's get straight to it. It's a better story and has better story development. Every superhero character here makes a contribution, and we understand why they're a member of the Justice League. We are able to relate to them because they all have plenty of screen time, and we get to see something of their emotional beings here and why they do what they do and what they struggle with. The CGI is far superior. The Steppenwolf villain in the first film was quite cheesy and bad. This one is intimidating. It works better. Everything across the board with the CGI, and the color is better too. Instead of the bright colors of the first one, this one really fits the tone of the story and the stakes of the story. The film also doesn't have any of Joss Whedon's stupid one-liners, which really just camped up the original. And they've also cut out some of the campy moments he added, like when Flash pushed a Russian family out of the danger zone. It's not in here, and I never understood it in the first one. It's a far superior film. I recommend to anyone who has seen the first and who hasn't seen the film, take the time to watch this. But be warned, it's a 4-hour film. Which gets to the next question: did Zack Snyder deserve to be fired? And the answer is yes, he did. The movie was 4 hours long. There is no way a studio or a movie theater can make back its money on a 4-hour movie. That's only 2 screenings in an entire day, and you only get to sell concessions twice. Everything that a movie theater makes money on, they would not be able to. They're not there to entertain us, they're there to make a living, so we can't expect that. The studios would have lost money, theaters would have lost money in the process. It just wouldn't have worked. Even if they cut it down to 3 hours, there are very few films that can go 3 hours. This would be adverse to teenagers, young teenagers, to come see this film because they need to sit there for 4 hours. Parents might be reluctant to bring their families, knowing that they have to sit in a movie theater for 4 hours. I just think it was audience averse from the start. If the studio hired Zack Snyder to make a film for hundreds of millions, and the end result would have been a money-losing and an audience-adverse film, the studio did have no choice because they couldn't release that film. He didn't fulfill his contract. And it also says that we should give Joss Whedon a little bit of slack. I'm not a fan of his work. I don't think he's a great director, and I don't like his sensibilities. But I challenge anyone out there to edit this film down to 2.5 hours, which is still a long feature film, and see how much of the film makes sense then. You'd find that most of the Cyborg and Flash scenes that were cut out of the original, you would have had to cut, because even though they're interesting, they don't have to do with the main storyline, and the film could actually exist without them. Zack Snyder's epilogues would have had been cut down to the point where they didn't make sense. So much would have been had to trim out because you'd be forced to say, all right, what's the best part of this film? It's the action. Although I am not a fan of Joss Whedon, I believe that he was kind of set up to fail with this film because no one really could have turned such a big project into a usable feature film length story. And one final thing, which I do want to mention, and I'm surprised with, is that this film has gone through 2 versions. Zack Snyder shot this twice. He got to go back and do reshoots. And yet, even after both versions, there's still one thing in the story that doesn't make sense. And it's towards the end of the film, Steppenwolf reveals to Darkseid that Earth is the original planet that Darkseid found the anti-life, and he was defeated. But that makes no sense because when Darkseid lost the anti-life, he also lost the mother box on that same planet. And that was defeated by the Amazons, the Atlanteans, old gods, and man. But we saw that at the very beginning of the film. We saw that in both versions of the film. The whole reason they're on Earth is because they know that the mother boxes are here. And when they get here, Steppenwolf identifies the Amazonians, identifies the Atlanteans, says to Wonder Woman she's got old god blood in her. So this guy obviously knows who the Atlanteans and the Amazonians are, and he wouldn't know who they are if he didn't know that Darkseid had battled them and were defeated by them in the first place. He wouldn't know that they were holding the boxes, even though he wasn't sure where. But he knew who they were when they were holding it. He knew he was fighting. So when at the end of the film he comes and tries to make this big reveal to Darkseid that this is the planet that he got defeated on, they knew that from square one. Everyone knew that. The characters knew it. People on Earth knew it. Villains knew it. So how this snuck through, I don't know. But what this does reveal is that this second film probably had a lot of stuff that actually wasn't in Zack Snyder's first cut, that he added and modified the film according to audience criticisms and had that luxury of 2020 hindsight to make the film better. I doubt this was the film that would have been originally released had Joss Whedon's film not come out and people criticized things they liked and didn't like, because this moment never made sense in this newer version of the film. It looks like it was carried over from the original, but for it to be true and original, they would have had to been searching Earth having no idea they were defeated here in the first place. Just as a recap, this film is worth seeing. It's a definite improvement. If you haven't seen the first, see this one. If you have seen the first, see this one. This film could have never been released in theaters, and therefore Zack Snyder failed his studio contract and deserved to be fired. That there is no way Joss Whedon could have edited this film down to 2.5 hours and it not be filled with script flaws and a lack of story. Anybody who sees this film and feels like the studio did something wrong, don't get on Twitter and Reddit and claim that this film should have been the original film that was released. It never would have been the original film released. Remember, this was pre-pandemic. You would have had to go to theaters. This film still carries some story and script flaws that no version of the film seemed to fix. So all in all, we are fortunate that the film failed, that Joss Whedon came in because it allowed this version of the film to exist that never would have otherwise. And this was no hidden version of the film. This was an improved version that they had a chance to fix, and they definitely did do that. That's all for today. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And as always, in the river of life, don't let yourself get pushed around with the currents. Be yourself. Be a stone in the river.